The issue very simply is this: shall we leave Vietnam in a way that by our own actions consciously turns the country over to the communists? Or shall we leave in a way that gives the South Vietnamese a reasonable chance to survive as a free people? My plan will end American involvement in a way that would provide that chance. And the other plan would end it precipitately and give victory to the communists. In a deeper sense, we have the choice of ending our involvement in this war on a note of despair or on a note of hope. I believe, as Thomas Jefferson did, that Americans will always choose hope over despair. We have it in our power to leave Vietnam in a way that offers a brave people a realistic hope of freedom. We have it in our power to prove to our friends in the world that America's sense of responsibility remains the world's greatest single hope of peace. And above all, we have it in our power to close a difficult chapter in American history, not meanly, but nobly, so that each one of us can come out of this searing experience with a measure of pride in our nation, confidence in our own character, and hope for the future of the spirit of America. I know there are those who honestly believe that I should move to end this war without regard to what happens to South Vietnam. This way would abandon our friends, but even more important, we would abandon ourselves. We would plunge from the anguish of war into a nightmare of recrimination. We would lose respect for this nation, respect for one another, respect for ourselves. I understand the deep concerns which have been raised in this country, fanned by reports of brutalities in Vietnam. Let me put this into perspective. I have visited Vietnam many times, and speaking now from that experience and as Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, I feel it is my duty to speak up for the 2.5 million fine young Americans who have served in Vietnam. The atrocity charges in individual cases should not and cannot be allowed to reflect on their courage and their self-sacrifice. War is a terrible and cruel experience for a nation, and it's particularly terrible and cruel for those who bear the burden of fighting. But never in history have men fought for less selfish motives, not for conquest, not for glory, but only for the right of a people far away to choose the kind of government they want. And while we hear and read much of isolated acts of cruelty, we do not hear enough of the tens of thousands of individual American soldiers. I've seen them there, building schools, roads, hospitals, clinics, who through countless acts of generosity and kindness have tried to help the people of South Vietnam. We can and we should be very proud of these men. They deserve not our scorn, but they deserve our admiration and our deepest appreciation. And the way to express that appreciation is to end America's participation in this conflict not in failure or in defeat, but in achievement of the great goals for which they fought. A South Vietnam free to determine its own future, and an America no longer divided by war, but united in peace. That is why it is so important how we end this war. By our decision, we will demonstrate the kind of people we are and the kind of country we will become. That's why I charted the course I have laid out tonight. To end this war, but end it in a way that will strengthen trust for America around the world, not undermine it. In a way that will redeem the sacrifices that have been made, not insult them. In a way that will heal this nation, not tear it apart. I can assure you tonight, with confidence, that American involvement in this war is coming to an end. But can you believe this? I understand why this question is raised by many very honest and sincere people. Because many times in the past, in this long and difficult war, actions have been announced from Washington which were supposed to lead to a reduction of American involvement in Vietnam. And over, these actions resulted in more Americans going to Vietnam and more casualties in Vietnam. Tonight, I do not ask you to take what I say on faith. Look at the record. Look again at this chart on my left. Every action taken by this administration, every decision made, has accomplished what I said it would accomplish. They have reduced American involvement. They have drastically reduced our casualties. In my campaign for the presidency, I pledged to end American involvement in this war. I am keeping that pledge. And I expect to be held accountable by the American people if I fail. I'm often asked what I would like to accomplish more than anything else while serving as President of the United States. And I always give the same answer: to bring peace, peace abroad, peace at home for America. The reason I am so deeply committed to peace goes far beyond political considerations or my concern about my place in history or the other reasons that political scientists usually say are the motivations of presidents. Every time I talk to a brave wife of an American POW, every time I write a letter to the mother of a boy who has been killed in Vietnam, I become more deeply committed to end this war and to end it in a way that we can build a lasting peace. I think the hardest thing that a president has to do is to present posthumously the nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor, to mothers or fathers or widows of men who have lost their lives but in the process have saved the lives of others. We had an award ceremony in the East Room of the White House just a few weeks ago. And at that ceremony, I remember one of the recipients, Mrs. Carl Taylor from Pennsylvania. Her husband was a Marine sergeant, Sergeant Carl Taylor. He charged an enemy machine gun single-handed and knocked it out. He lost his life. But in the process, the lives of several wounded Marines in the range of that machine gun were saved. After I presented her the medal, I shook hands with their two children, Carl Jr., he was 8 years old, and Kevin, who was 4. As I was about to move to the next recipient, Kevin suddenly stood at attention and saluted. I found it rather difficult to get my thoughts together for the next presentation. My fellow Americans, I want to end this war in a way that is worthy of the sacrifice of Carl Taylor. And I think he would want me to end it in a way that would increase the chances that Kevin and Carl and all those children like them here and around the world could grow up in a world where none of them would have to die in war. That would increase the chance for America to have what it has not had in this century, a full generation of peace. We've come a long way in the last 2 years toward that goal. With your continued support, I believe we will achieve that goal. And generations in the future will look back at this difficult, trying time in America's history, and they will be proud that we demonstrated that we had the courage and the character of a great people. Thank you.